Hello, my name is Lisa Conradi, and I'm an individual affiliate with the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. Prior to this, I served the role as the executive director for the Chadwick Center for Children and Families at Rady Children's Hospital, San Diego. And for several years, we had a Category 2 center focused on trauma-informed child welfare practices. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the role of the leader in implementation science initiatives. I'm talking about this because one, supporting leaders is something that I'm very passionate about, having been a leader myself, and also understanding the complexity of what it really takes to implement an initiative effectively. Part of what I'm going to talk about today was really pulled from our experience of implementing telehealth in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the resources that you'll see linked and attached to this video is actually a paper that we put out on the Fast and the Furious, which really talked about in depth what it really took for us to implement telehealth during COVID-19, some lessons learned, as well as some things that really worked as part of that implementation. So one of the things I'm really passionate about is thinking critically about the role of the leader in implementation initiatives. Historically, when we've talked about what does it take to really implement successfully, we know that leadership buy-in is critical. That's in every piece of literature on implementation science. It's a key part of the CFIR model. It's a key part of the EPIS model. So it's very important for us to think about, yes, we need to have leadership buy-in, but what does that really look like? So often and historically, what I've seen is that the leader will say, yes, I commit to this, I'm excited about this, and I support my staff in implementing this work. But then what can often happen is that the leader gets pulled in several different directions. And while they support maybe a kickoff meeting and one or two follow-up meetings, they then aren't able to support the longer implementation of this work over time. And their active participation starts to wane. And then what unfortunately can happen is that if the initiative isn't fully implemented and really isn't built into the fabric of the organization, the staff members can start to feel less engaged, less excited, and to feel like, oh, we've already moved on. My leader isn't here anymore to keep us going. And then I've seen that actually staff participation in the work can also start to wane during that time. So what I really want to talk about is what are ways in which senior leaders can actively support implementation initiatives over time beyond this initial kickoff kind of opportunity where they really show up, and what it takes as a leader on a personal level to really maintain that kind of energy and enthusiasm for the work. As leaders, it's hard. It's hard work. It's hard to stay motivated. It's hard to feel supportive. Often you might be the only one, and you might not have peers that you can go to when you need your own kinds of support. And so it can be hard to keep your energy focused on all these different things when you're getting pulled in so many different directions, while also recognizing that your staff are really looking to you to be a model for what true engagement looks like, and that for them to feel engaged, they want you to feel engaged and excited about it as well. I know in my experience as a leader, getting pulled in so many different directions, it was very hard to maintain a consistent level of commitment. We found that with the implementation of the telehealth, so you can see that in the paper, that when we first did this, it was my first priority. So we were absolutely implementing, moving to telehealth. I was putting all my effort into it. I was showing up for every meeting. I was convening kind of lunch and learns, really trying to facilitate opportunities for the staff members to come together. And then after 1 or 2 months, when telehealth was running, maybe not in the culture of the organization, but it was running, I felt like I was pulled in other directions, and I felt like, it's good enough. They've got it. They can go with it. But one of the things that we noticed happened over time is staff started to feel less supported, that they really were looking for ongoing leadership support in a very active way versus this kind of upfront blessing of the work, and then a directive to go forward with it. So I really want to talk about ways that we can help leaders stay engaged, motivated, and really supported as they are leading this work over time. One of the things that I've really found is that senior leaders need to stay active in that implementation, as I've mentioned. And so how do we do that? How do we as senior leaders, knowing that we're going to get pulled in other directions? I think it's important, one, to know and to be able to be transparent with your team on what your involvement in this initiative is going to look like and what your commitment looks like, to really voice it, to say, we're implementing this. Hopefully, it's a planned implementation, unlike our telehealth, which happened, maybe was not always so planned. It was something that came upon very quickly. And to say, my commitment is that I'm going to help kick off this work. I'm going to be involved in these meetings. And then over time, I'm going to check back in. And it's still something on my radar. It's still something I support, but I might not always be able to be at every meeting. Just being honest and transparent about that. And then checking in when the meetings happen, making sure that your staff know that even if you weren't there in person or virtually, you weren't actually attending the meeting, that you care about the work and you're really engaged and excited and continuing to support it and see it as a priority for the organization. So really planning ahead, being thoughtful about what you can and can't give, but knowing that it's important to maybe prioritize this initiative, I would say longer than you might initially think that you need to be involved in it. I have found that there is a point where staff members really take it on and they don't necessarily need leaders to be there all the time. And this is usually when the work is kind of been put into the policies and procedures, is really is very active, that there are several champions who are keeping this moving, that they feel like they have the torch and they're really, really willing to carry that into the next phase. And really thinking as a leader about your own wellness. What does it take for you to be able to stay committed? And one of the things that I really found, especially during COVID-19, is there was a lot being asked for leaders to be available to support staff, but there wasn't a lot of support for leaders themselves. So what is it that you need? Is there another leader that can be a peer to help you stay motivated? Is there ways that you can really take care of your own boundaries? You can maybe allocate some time, make sure you're prioritizing and try not to get pulled in so many different directions. What is it that you need in order to stay engaged and supported? So really to understand this leadership wellness idea, knowing that this initiative is going to increase your scope of work, at least for a period of time, and that can take more out of you than maybe you anticipate, and that your staff are going to expect that you are involved in that and that you are involved over time. So really take the time to check in, find those supports and check in with yourself. Now, while there's not a ton of peer-supported literature on supporting leadership wellness during implementation initiatives, there are some strategies that I really want to put forth for you guys to think about. One, acknowledging where you are, being present, understanding what this work takes and how to think of it as a marathon, not a sprint over time. And really looking at things like CFIR, the implementation model, to think about what needs to be in place intrinsically and extrinsically in order for the implementation process to be successful. Because I have found that when the intrinsic factors are met, that is when leaders get to take a step back. So really thinking about being transparent, being an authentic leader, showing up and being committed longer than you think you might need to be. In my experience, showing up for just a initial meeting, a kickoff, and giving your blessing, and maybe one or two meetings after that isn't sufficient for the implementation initiative to really work. I really want to encourage you as leaders to dig in, to be active, and to give it a really good amount of your time upfront and prioritize it and plan it out. And then as your ability to really actively engage decreases, which it's going to because other things will come in, that you're really thoughtful and transparent with your team about, one, your ongoing commitment to the work, and two, what is realistic in terms of your participation over time. and then checking in on an ongoing basis to make sure that folks know that you continue to be committed to this. Again, it's leadership support is critical, but thinking about true leadership support, not just checking a box, not just saying, hey, go for it, guys, but showing up, being present, and making it a priority for longer than you think you might need it to be, but still showing up over time to be able to do that. So it's not always easy, but make sure to take care of yourself, find those supports as a leader, and that will really, I think, play a critical role in ensuring that these types of implementation initiatives sustain over time. Thank you.